Good morning, boaters. This is Keith McGowan, the Outboard Dad, here to help you have a better boating experience. Today, we're going to dive deeper into our engine block, our power head, as the marine folks call it. And we're going to check our carburetors on this. We're going to start tearing this down, putting the parts away safely in good places so that we don't have any loss of parts or to help us remember the sequence when we tore this down. So as you see, I have my all electronics in one spot on my shelving. I'm going to clear out a little more room for my carbs and other parts here. Starter motor's got to come off, and then we're going to split the case on this and see what this looks like. So let's tear into it. So we'll start with the basics here. We're going to take off our air box or oil tank. We're going to try and not make a mess with that. We get the starter motor off. We'll start getting these put aside. So we can see one of the gaskets kind of stayed on there from that. The other two stuck to the plastic cover. We have a link here we're going to remove. We're going to take our oil tank off, so I want to be careful removing this. Someone put a clamp on here. It's probably an older piece of oil line here, so we'll loosen this up. I don't like this particular clamp on here because it chews up the line itself. And let's see if we can get this off. It's probably going to be damaged. That'll definitely have to be replaced if this is worth rebuilding. So do have some oil in there, so we'll make sure we tilt this. We also have the wiring here. This actually has a lot of oil still in it, so cut tie strap here that's holding this. Now we have it dumping out the other side. I remember saying something about not wanting to make a mess. That didn't go over too well. So we'll keep this, hopefully the cap holds sealed, and we'll keep this from dumping oil everywhere and clean up my mess here. So it looks like we can disconnect our fuel line. We'll take it off here. Nice new filter on there. Sometimes I'll take the clamps and just tighten them back up in another spot. Helps me remember how it came off as well. This gray fuel line sometimes is a cheaper fuel line, and sometimes it doesn't come apart without falling apart. So this piece of the old fuel line is pretty well chewed up. So we're just going to go ahead and cut it. So we have a primer here for priming. It's already been disconnected electrically, so that can come off with the whole carb assembly. And then we have a bunch of bleed lines here, right? So we have bleed line going here, bleed line coming around. It goes to the block, so we want to make sure we have those documented very well so they go back on the same way that they came off. These are the wires here from our stator for our charging system. So we want to make sure we get those removed and put back in the same place. So keep them out of the way. See, this one bleed line comes all the way up here. This one goes to this side. Oh, look at that. Oh, this is the one we disconnected that came off of here. And we just tucked it out of the way. So we'll put that back there just for now. But the rest of these bleed lines, we want to make sure we go through, trace them around to the other side, make sure we know where they go, so they go back the same way that they came. So if you look closely here, we see we have Allen key on one, and we have studs with a 7/16 on the other, and that's the way they design these. Sometimes the stud comes all the way out, sometimes the nut comes all the way off. Regardless of which it is, looks like these studs are coming out. We're going to save them all in a little cup. and get these carburetors off one by one, and I want to inspect them before we get into the rest of the motor. I want to at least pull the bowls off and take a look. I could pull this one right here and look at it pretty cleanly, but looking down into the throats, it looks pretty clean, but it's all depends on what's in here that counts. So we're going to pull them off one by one and check them, probably remount them on the manifold, because we're going to take this manifold off, and we want to look at the reed plates to see if there's any broken reed plates in there as well. So let's get this apart. So once we get most of the bolts out, or the bolts mostly as far as they can go, there's a little linkage piece here. Sometimes you can do it with your fingers. Sometimes you just need a nice flat tip screwdriver. We want to try not to break it. This just pops off a ball here on the linkage. So this way we just have this one off, and we can take the rest of it off as well. Just let it dangle, leave it there. And now we can look at inside a little deeper, open up our throttles. And once we get these bolts off, we'll take the carb off the rest of the way. Once we got the bolts mostly out, there's a bleed line here, overflow line. It just goes to kind of a little drain if this overflows. Then we've got our fuel line connection. Take the tie straps off. The fuel line actually looks to be in pretty good shape right on the motor. Can smell. Smells like fresh gas, doesn't smell stale. So the guy wasn't lying when he said he was just running it. Then we have another primer line that comes from our primer solenoid. It goes to the top of the carburetor, it goes to this carburetor, and it comes right here. So we're going to take that primer line off. Again, we're trying to do it so we don't break these lines, but we can always replace them. So we have our gasket here. Don't see any blow by, but might be hard to tell. We'll put that aside. Okay, let's get this on a rag here, and we'll take the bowl off. And let's see what we got. So I'm not too concerned about dirt getting in there, because we're not doing a full clean and rebuild right now. We're just kind of doing inspection. But I will just take a little brake cleaner. Just be careful with your eyes. Just any of the large debris, so it doesn't fall down into the carburetor. Again, not too crazy. And we'll open this up. So we still have our overflow line hooked up here. Just going to leave it on there for now so I remember what the line is for and where it came from when we start to reassemble. So if this was a, running motor, it should be fairly clean inside, but you never know. Maybe it sat for a year or two before they took it out this last season when they developed the rod knock. So this was the bottom carburetor for the bottom two cylinders. So I think they were okay. There was some minor scoring in one. It's that middle one I'm really curious to see. So let's see what this one looks like for now. So if you notice in these carburetors, the float is in the bowl as opposed to here. It looks pretty clean. I'm not seeing anything funky. We can go ahead and take that bowl out, but I don't see anything crazy in here. So for right now, I'm going to just go ahead and close it up. I might spray a little WD-40 in the needle, just so it stays lubricated while we're rebuilding the rest of it. And I won't crank these down too crazy, just enough so it stays together for now. Let's see what that next carburetor looks like. It's the middle one that had the damage on the cylinders. So if you look closely here, as we are disconnecting our middle carburetor, you're going to see another link. So when I push this, this is also, right, so our throttle linkage is connected here, which is down from our throttle and shifter, and our cable connects back here. But this pushes our whole throttle assembly, and it also pushes on our oil pump. And what that does is that varies the oil flow based on your throttle position. So as you give these motors more throttle, it's also providing more oil mix to the gas. So that's how they vary their oil flow. So we've got the bolts out of this now. We need to just disconnect. It's the same style fitting. Try not to break. Little ball fitting so that we know where that goes. We still have another bleed line here for overflow to disconnect. And then this is our center carburetor. So this is the one I'm most curious what it looks like inside, and we'll check it out. So we're gonna know this is our center carburetor. They're all the same carburetors, but we're gonna know by the linkage. I also left the fuel line connected on both, so I know they're upper and lower, and my overflow line. So I'm noticing here from my bleeder, or my primer, look at that. Isn't that interesting? So this came off my primer solenoid over here. We'll show you where that was, just so you can have a reference. So let's take a look at that. So this carburetor was mounted here. And if you look, this is our primer solenoid. One comes from this one and one goes out and primes fuel to the top of our carburetors, our two bottom carburetors here. So this line came off of here, disconnected, and as you saw, it's got a big fat split in it, doesn't it? So what can that do to us? So what does that mean to us? Simple thing, oh look, the fuel line's broken, I bet you it was leaking. Well, it's a primer line, number one. Number two, this feeds down to our other bottom carburetor. If you remember, our two top cylinders were fine, but our middle was really wiped out, and the bottoms also had some scoring in them. Our tops were really beautiful. So what does that mean? So let's pull this off and let's take a look. So if we look in here, right, we can see where this goes in, and this is going to squirt fuel into our carburetor. But if it has an air leak because that hose is not connected, it's going to suck air here, and we're going to lean out these two cylinders. And also this line that goes to my bottom cylinder is also going to suck some air, isn't it? Now we're probably only going to notice a leak when we push in that key and squirt that fuel in there. So this is a good find. This is probably why this motor went bad. Simple fuel line maintenance. But we're still going to get into this carburetor too and make sure there's no dirt inside of it. Just notice number two problem. So if we're meticulous while we're going through these motors, we find things. So if we take a look here, look at that. I got all these other screws, but this one's missing. So someone pulled this apart at one point, and I don't know if it was leaking air into this carburetor or not. Maybe it was fine, but I don't like maybes. This should have a screw in here. So we're finding a couple issues here that we're gonna have to address when we reassemble this motor, if it's a rebuildable motor. So it doesn't look bad at all. I can see down inside where the pickups are and everything. It looks very clean. So it's a shame, but it seems that's the only issue that we have that could have caused the problem with this motor. Let's continue on with our evaluation. Okay, so really good find here. Leaning out that cylinder. Well, it was two cylinders, right? Because we sucked air at the top of both of them, and even some at the bottom. Now it's not going to suck as much air at the bottom because it has a smaller tube going to it, but that one up top, I'm pretty confident that that's why this motor burnt those two cylinders up. So very interesting, leaning out a cylinder. We're going to take this last carburetor off. I'm sure it's clean, but we're going to double check it. Then we're going to get into this manifold in the next episode, see what our crank looks like. My key thing, I left my flywheel on right now, so I just have something to pull to turn. I want to turn my flywheel back and forth and make sure that there's no connecting rod slop or anything in the crankshaft and the connecting rods. So we're going to continue on with this in our next episode. I'm so happy when I find issues like that because I'm getting more and more excited about this being another good running motor for somebody, and something simple with maintenance again that was found that could have been taken care of. Older motors, if you're diligent and you go through all the fuel lines, you'll have less problems. This is Keith McGowan, the Outboard Dad. Please like, subscribe, and take a look at my new used outboard motor buying guide. It's not out yet. It's coming very soon. Maybe by the time this video posts, it might be out, but I will let you know. Have a great day.